Okay. Video. And good evening, one and all, and welcome to the Lincoln KY 2024 Covington City Commission Virtual Candidate Forum, brought to you in partnership with the Center for Great Neighborhoods and the Covington Business Council. I'm Nathan Granger, your friendly neighborhood Kenton County reporter, and I will be serving as your host and moderator this evening. We want to thank all the candidates for coming out today. And what an evening we have in store for you tonight. We will be discussing important issues on the minds of residents and candidates. Our topics will run the gamut. No stone will be left unturned. No quandary will be left unresolved. No course left uncharted. Candidates, can you dig it? Okay.
Yes.
Before we begin, a brief word from our sponsors. Pat and Shannon, whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Shannon Ratterman. I'm Executive Director of the Center for Great Neighborhoods of Covington. I just want to say hello and welcome, and thank you to the candidates for being here. Thank you to Lincoln KY and CDC for co-organizing with us. And we're happy to be here, and we'll be watching downstairs. Pat and I are going to log off here soon, and we're going to watch downstairs at our building. So thanks, everybody.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. And we too are honored to be a part of this with Link and CGN, the Covington Business Council's mission is to advocate for a healthy business climate, and the work of our elected leaders is very important in helping us to do that. So I wish you all the best, not only tonight in the forum, but as you campaign door to door, and good luck to you on election day. Thank you again for participating, and Link, thank you for spearheading this as well.
All right, thank you, Pat and Shannon. Before we get into things, I must take a moment to apologize. In some of my initial correspondence, I misidentified the Center for Great Neighborhoods as another organization that is not, in fact, involved with the event, and it led to some confusion, and I take full responsibility for the error and just want to take a moment to correct the record before we get started. Here is the structure of the evening. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. I will then ask a series of 4 questions. Each of you will have 2 minutes to respond. You will not be allowed to rebut each other's answers. Candidates have not received the questions in advance. Finally, I will ask a more open-ended question at the end, during which time you can speak on issues that were not addressed in the preceding questions. During this time, you can also make any concluding remarks. You will have 2 minutes during that final section as well. I will give you a 30-second warning as timers wind down. The first candidate to respond to each question will be assigned randomly, and then we will move down the line of candidates for each response. All righty, let's get started. The first person to speak today will be Aaron Wolpert. Take it away.
Hi there, I'm Aaron Wolpert, live in Westside, Covington with my wife Jessica and her daughter Natalie. We live on Lee Street. I'm sitting in my garage at Lee Street in the moment to stay away from the dogs. I just want to talk about the experience of campaigning. This is my first time in any sort of political foray. And over the last couple of months, I've walked a couple hundred miles in every neighborhood in Covington, knocked on a couple thousand doors. And I can really say it's been the most rewarding experience that I can remember. All the stories I hear, everything I've learned. The best thing is certainly we all went into this campaign with perhaps a set of ideas and thoughts for the city. I can say that I've changed mine a whole lot because I've been listening to folks, understanding that every neighborhood has its own very unique challenges and opportunities, and that's been the best part here. The next thing is just the enthusiasm for this city that I hear at every door. Folks are excited about Covington, and they're excited more importantly about their neighborhoods. what they can do, what they want to do, not even on the whole neighborhood scale, but on the smaller scale of the street and the block. And that's what, as commissioner, I really want to speak to, and work with folks. Ask them what they want and what solutions they can come up with, not just what the city can do for them, but what they know will work best. Because who's better positioned to know what'll work in their neighborhoods than the folks who've lived, on a street for 5, 10, 50 years. And the one obstacle there is a whole lot of folks, for various reasons, feel a little disconnected from the city. And that is not at all the fault of city staff who's out there every day. I think we as commissioners need to be there, need to be that bridge, need to be an intermediary between city staff and residents, go out and get these ideas, solicit feedback, and then provide residents the support they need to thrive. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Aaron. Well, it looks like Bill Wells is having some technical difficulties. We're going to try to get that resolved. In the meantime, Carrie, you are up next.
I want to thank Link Northern Kentucky for organizing this event. I think it makes it a lot more accessible when we can do something online as well, right? So thank you. My name is Carrie McMurtry Garriga, and I lived in Covington for 10 years. I am originally from Puerto Rico. I've lived in the area for 40 years, but like I said, the last 10 have been in Covington. I live around Randolph Park, around 7th Street and Randolph Park. And I enjoy living in Covington. I find the city very vibrant and very welcoming. And that's why I want to get involved. I work at Thomas More University. I teach Spanish at Thomas More University. I am also a yoga teacher and a national board certified health and wellness coach. That's kind of mixing my interests with what I do. I decided to run for Covington City Commission because I possess the personal and professional qualifications that are necessary to continue to move Covington in a good direction, making progress after the first 25 years of the 21st century. I have experience as an academic administrator at Thomas More. And if you know, the national landscape for higher education has a lot of similarities with running a city, in the sense that we always have to be very mindful of the budget and of budget issues. That is why
about 30 seconds left.
That is why my main dedication is to fiscal responsibility and the development of alternative sources of revenue, which come with the development of businesses in the city. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you. Next. I apologize for that. That was the timer. Shannon Smith, you are next.
I think I just unmuted myself. Okay. So my name's Shannon C. Smith. I'm a sitting Covington City Commissioner. I'm in my 3rd term, seeking my 4th. I'm an attorney. I'm an entrepreneur. And I own 2 businesses in the city, and I've grown them. And I've revitalized 3 properties. And on my social, you'll often see that I do a hashtag which says Committed Candidate. And I want to explain why. And it really is my investment in the city, the entities, and the people. Just in the past year, I've volunteered, supported, or partnered with Be Concerned, the ION Center for Violence Prevention, the Center for Great Neighborhoods, Chip Terry Foundation, I've done work with Children's Law Center, Aviatra. I currently sit on the board for Meet NKY. I've previously served with Latonia Uptown, done clinics for the Small Business Development Center in Covington. I've volunteered for the Victorian at Riverside. It used to be the Covington Ladies Home. There's wonderful folks out there. Worked with Mortar Covington. And back when Renaissance Covington was still in existence in 2017, I served on their Economic Vitality Committee, where we won the Great American Main Street Award. And one of the biggest projects that we had was bringing free wireless internet to the Central Business District, which provided a catalyst not to the business district, but to our city at large. And that's just a brief segue into my highlights as a commissioner, bringing free wireless internet to school-aged children during COVID so they could work from home, so parents could work from home, so we could have telemedicine for folks that otherwise couldn't make it. Partnered with FC Cincinnati to bring a free mini pitch to Austin Bird Park. Advocated for the first dog park in the city. We secured the biggest project in a generation for the city in the CCR site. We have a Moody's
30
A
seconds.
rating. And all that to say, the reason that I'm running is to keep that momentum going. I'm endorsed by Covington Fire, Covington Police, the Northern Kentucky Labor Council, and I'd love for you as voters to endorse me by giving me your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Tim Acree, you are next.
Thanks, Nathan. Hi, guys. I'm Tim Acree. I've been a fixture in the city of Covington for almost 30 years. I moved to Northern Kentucky just after serving in the United States Navy and completing college. In '97, I purchased my home in Old Seminary Square, where I still live today. My passion for local government pretty much runs through my veins. My father was the mayor of the town that I grew up, also served on the commission, and I watched him take a steel town that was in pretty bad shape and turn it around as best that he could. I served in the U.S. Navy from 1987 to 1993, had a break in service. I went back in the military again in 2001 and served through 2007. I started my Navy career as an enlisted and moved into the Civil Engineering Corps once I took a direct commission. I was in the United States Navy Seabees and proudly served in the Persian Gulf, Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. I also have 30 years in the construction and environmental industry, where I've held positions from field techs all the way up to president and COO. I'm currently the vice president of O'Rourke Wrecking Company, who obviously has been very involved in the CCR development, as well as other riverfront development that's going on throughout the $5 billion mile. I serve on the Covington Street Hockey League board as the executive director. I'm on the DeVue Park Advisory Committee, and I'm affectionately known as Mr. Begonias, working with Kara and Scarlet Begonias flower truck that most of you have probably seen throughout the city. I've been endorsed by the Covington FOP, the Northern Kentucky Labor Council, IBEW Local 212, current Mayor Joe Meyer, and plenty of small businesses. My focus is small business, parks and rec, public safety, and obviously the economic development of our urban corridor. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much. Tim Downing, you are next.
Hello, my name is Tim Downing. I have had the pleasure of serving as your city commissioner for the past 8 years. For those of you who don't know my history, I've lived in Covington most of my life, nearly 30 years. I grew up across from Holmes, attended church in Latonia. I've lived in Monte Cassino during college, and South Covington has been my home for more than a decade, where I live with my wife and my young daughter. During my time in our wonderful community, I've taken part in countless community cleanups, youth church events, and everything from bake sales to volunteering to teach math at the Grateful Life Center for those trying to get their GED. I'm very fortunate in the time that I've served on the Covington City Commission. I've been able to introduce or support legislation for a variety of different programs that I'm proud of, including the neighborhood grant program, which I spearheaded, that allows our different neighborhood groups to apply for city funds to help beautify their corner of the city. The small business facade grant program to help businesses within our community, multi-year budgeting for better forecasting of the city finances, fully staffed police, fire, and code enforcement, and developing new and unique ways to attract strong talent to our community for the safety of our residents, first-time home buyer incentive programs to help bridge the gap and increase home ownership in our area, and enhancing technology for our code enforcement and street repair, enabling us to address resident concerns faster. I'm proud to say that while this list is extensive, there's a lot more to be done. And I have the experience and the vision to make sure that that can be accomplished. I'm looking forward to continuing to be a champion for our residents. In my 9-to-5, I'm an analyst. I take large amounts of information. I use that to help point us towards larger issues that can be addressed. And that's why I believe that at its core, Covington's biggest opportunities are centered around improving our economy. We need to continue to create a business climate that will help us encourage both small and large companies alike to put down roots in our community and provide our citizens a place to work. This is going to help us revitalize our community, lower taxes for our residents. But in order to do this, we have to maintain our focus and not allow temporary obstacles to distract us from our vision. Covington needs to focus on the fundamentals throughout our city. We need to show our residents and the community at large that we can get the basics right, that the services that the city provides are part of our fundamental makeup: safe streets, fire protection, and our basic infrastructure needs. I would ask for your vote this November. I'm very proud to say that I've been endorsed by both our FOP and our Local 38, and I hope that I can get your support as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tim. Next up is Brady Bowen.
Hi, thank you, Nathan. I would like to thank Link for providing us the opportunity to present our vision for the city of Covington this evening to the community. My name is Brady Bowen. I've been an assistant principal and an educator in Covington Independent Public Schools for 23 years and spent a total of 29 years in public education altogether. I have also served on the Housing Authority Board of Covington and the Neighborhood Investment Partners, which is a nonprofit organization focused on providing housing options for our community. I decided to run this year because I will be retiring in July from my education career, and I wanted to continue to be able to serve my families and youth and be an advocate for them in the capacity of local government. Many of my families face a lot of issues as far as housing insecurity, subpar housing, overcrowded housing. But on a more personal scale, over the years, I've lost many of my students to situations that if we were to take the initiative as a local government, as a city commission, to address those issues, particularly youth violence, they could have been prevented. I've lost students to gun violence. I've lost students to incarceration, death because of other situations that were, preventable. And so as a commissioner, I would like for our focus to be moving beyond simply the economic development related to the community, focusing on our community and specifically the needs of our families.
Great. Thank you so much. James, you are next.
Can you? Okay. First, I would like to apologize. Last night I had a family emergency. I was in the emergency room till pretty late and I didn't get much sleep, so I might be a little bit off my game this evening. But I would like to thank Link, the Center for Great Neighborhoods, and the Covington Business Council for hosting this event. My name is James Tebby. I'm a lifelong resident of Covington, growing up in Latonia, and a 15-year military veteran. My campaign is built on a simple belief. Whenever Covington thrives, every resident, whether they live in Monte Cassino, Latonia, South Covington, or anywhere else, should feel the benefits. As a first-time candidate, I've spent a lot of time listening to you. Many residents, especially those away from the riverfront, feel overlooked. and that's why I'm running, to ensure that all Covington benefits from the city's progress. But to do that, we must address the challenges that we face. I believe our current deficit is our biggest issue, and I believe we need to be careful on taking more debt that doesn't generate revenue. We cannot afford to continue to burden our residents with future financial instability, but at the same time, we must invest in our future, which means ensuring that our youth have more activities beyond school sports, keeping them engaged and supported. We also need to address our growing demand for workforce housing as our city develops. We need to make sure that working families and individuals can afford to live in Covington as well as contribute to our community. Over the summer, I've had numerous meetings with local leaders, neighboring mayors, business owners, educational leaders, and to understand what the challenges that they see are, as well as listening to their concerns, and to help better prepare myself. One thing that I've learned is everybody has a unique voice, and the concerns throughout Covington vary by each neighborhood. I'm ready to bring a balanced approach to fiscal responsibility, transparency, and growth, and ensuring that every part of our city is represented. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Last but not least is Bill Wells. Now, I know, Bill, you're having some technical issues. Why don't you go ahead and speak for us just to check? Bill? All right, we will swing back to that. We're going to try and get that issue resolved. I'm going to go ahead and answer the first question, or excuse me, not answer the first question, but ask the first question. First question, how does the city balance the need for neighborhood services like parks, roads, and sidewalks with the need to pay for it with things like economic development? Brady Bowen, you go first this time.
Okay, thank you. So obviously we need to make sure that we are providing our residents with the basic infrastructure that they need. We need to make sure that our Parks and Recs department is using their funding to collaborate with the school system. This is something that I spoke about the other night at our last forum. By building that strong relationship with organizations that already exist within the community, we can provide additional support to our students and our youth and families in Covington. So for example, in the evenings after our community learning center programs are finished, the Parks and Rec folks, if they were working on that flex schedule, could come in and offer additional support services to our students and youth in the community. And they would already have those facilities provided rather than having to spend money to do additional locations for sports or other kinds of activities. Balancing the budget obviously is very important. And so one of the things that we need to do is look at partnering with other communities as well, other cities within Northern Kentucky, to look at contracts for goods and services, specifically like larger machinery and equipment. We could cut some of the funding that way, but still be able to use those to provide our residents with the services that they do need. We could also look at contracting with the county for items and goods as well, and work in a more collaborative effort.
All right, thank you so much. James, same question is to you. I can repeat it if you like.
Would you mind?
No problem. How does the city balance the need for neighborhood services like parks, roads, and sidewalks with the need to pay for it with things like economic development?
Well, the challenge right now, as I just mentioned, is definitely our budget. I know we're pretty much at bare bones with a lot of the cuts the city's already made. But you know, we can always look for grants, and I know the city does that as much as possible, especially when it comes to parks and recreation. But we need to continue to look for any efficiencies within our spending to try to save money where we can. The last thing we want to do is put that burden on our residents and increase any taxes. But I agree with Brady, you know, we can look for different organizations and other partners to try to assist with some of this. And, you know, we have to prioritize on what are needs versus wants until we have the funding, but we need to continue to look for ways to increase our tax base.
All right. Thank you so much. Aaron, you're next.
Thanks. I think the most important thing to do as we continue to work on revenue creation in business and payroll tax is to make sure that when the financial situation improves, as it will, that we're ready to do things efficiently and to come up with infrastructure projects in particular that meet our residents' needs. That's why I've been talking with residents all through the campaign about forming or convening a streetscape commission, drawing on residents from every neighborhood to talk about what they want in terms of their streets, their sidewalks, thinking about the whole street from sidewalk to sidewalk. So we're talking about speed bumps and bike lanes and parking, all these things as one, so that we have more of a unified and coherent and comprehensive plan before we start to build. Again, there may be a bit of a time lag as the CCR site gets up and running and revenue starts to come in. But I think we should be ready to go by asking residents what they want and what they can envision for their streets. I've proposed that we classify our streets and come up with design standards. So not just going intersection by intersection, waiting for one neighborhood to complain about, you know, a problematic intersection, but to have design standards in place so that when we can start to build the infrastructure folks need, and of course, using streets is just one example of that, we have a comprehensive model and we're not spending 6 months on a study here and there and then going to commission and back and forth, but everything will be in place, at least conceptually, and go from there. And we need to think of our neighborhoods also as economic development in a sense, that the city as a whole attracts businesses, not just one district, not just one street, not just one site. The entire city and the feel that people have for the city is essential for attracting and maintaining businesses that thrive. And economic development needs to be thought of in a broader sense as we pivot back to our neighborhoods.
Great. Thank you so much. Tim Ackery, you are next.
Thank you, Nathan. I think this question's kind of several different answers. The first is, what is the city actually responsible for when it comes to parks, roads, and sidewalks? As we know, you hear lots of complaints about Madison Avenue. That's a state route. So we would need to work closely with the state to try to ensure that the state routes are being taken care of within our city, especially as we continue to grow. As it relates to sidewalks in and around parks and parking lots and other items that the city owns, the tax base that is coming back, the budget that is getting resolved, will obviously money will be able to be set aside to help that. I also think that we need to focus with all of the development that is taking place within the city, that we put that in the contract of the developers themselves. There will be many funds coming in for a project like the CCR project, the Brent Spence Bridge, lots of these items that you're discussing or that you mentioned here and that other candidates are mentioning as well can be built into those projects where federal monies and or state level monies will help pay for us to get new sidewalks, as well as green space, et cetera. So I'm a huge proponent of asking the local businesses as well as the other businesses that are going to be coming to town, as well as contractors, to help continue to grow this city, rather than continue to just look for more money from taxes and other incentives from our residents and local businesses. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Carrie, you are next.
The city does need to keep a balanced budget, right? And once the city's making cuts to the budget, or, you know, the budget is at bare bones, but the budget needs to get to a place where it's functional for the city. And we need to create some type of fund for when there are problems again in the future. The economic development goes very well hand in hand with the improvements to the infrastructure and the city. As we're looking for economic development and we're looking for existing businesses to expand or new businesses to come into the city, it is the livability and the walkability and the safety of the streets and the roads that's going to attract the people and make them want to live in Covington. We have a unique opportunity with the development of the Central Riverfront District, and we should take advantage of that and make it safe and walkable and bikeable, so that then the people that, high earners from the techno-scientific industries that are coming now to Covington want to live here, because that's what they want. They want an urban environment that is safe and where people can walk and there are parks. So they go hand in hand, one with the other.
Alrighty, Tim Downing, you are next.
Certainly. So the question being, how does the city balance the need for neighborhood services like parks and roads and sidewalks with the need to pay for it with things like economic development? I believe that we may be having a video issue. You're still the primary, Nathan. Are we okay? Normally I jump to the primary there. Okay, we're good. All right. So the first thing is that we have to understand how the tax structure works. Every commissioner and every candidate that's running has to understand how we collect our taxes. So the very first thing that I did is I took a look at the way that we were doing our budgeting. I started getting us to do longer term planning and improving our transparency through priority-based budgeting. That's why when we had the financial issues that we did earlier this past year, we were able to pivot quickly and we were able to do it responsibly. That is how we make sure that we can balance and we can pay. Now, when we talk about what we're going to be doing with that, like other things that we can be tackling, as we've talked about, we can go after grants or we can go after public-private partnerships. I don't want to steal Commissioner Smith's thunder, but I'm very proud of the work that the city has done with the FC Mini Pitch. We can also partner with our community in order to make sure that we are collecting the resources that we have. There's a reason why our Parks and Rec department is award-winning, because we do engage with the community. We do engage with the residents around us, and we make sure that we have efficient use of the funds that we have available to us. I know that we've had to cut back recently, but that is because of a temporary storm that we are weathering due to the long-term implications and impact of the work from home issues within our community. But we are on an upswing, and I am looking forward to us returning to our new normal.
Great. Shannon Smith.
Thank you. And Nathan, would you mind repeating the question? Because I want to make sure that I capture it fully, and you broke up a little bit and there's been a lot of different answers, and I just want to make sure I'm very narrow in my response.
That's not a problem at all. How does the city balance the need for neighborhood services like parks, roads, and sidewalks with the need to pay for them with things like economic development?
Sure. And anytime you're talking about paying for something, you need to talk about how you're going to get the money to pay for it. So obviously a continued investment in bringing and attracting business into our community is massive. In addition, Commissioner Downing nailed it. Continued public-private partnerships, which are incredible resources for us, and exactly how we got the pitch, the FC Cincinnati pitch in Covington. And I've talked to countless business owners who are interested in doing unique partnerships like that to continue to improve our parks and recs and the opportunities for our youth. And I can also say that, this hasn't been touched on yet, but in Covington and in Kentucky in general, our ability to raise money is limited. And having those conversations with groups like, I can't remember the name here, You Decide Kentucky, about diversifying our revenue streams are conversations that we need to have. And I'll very briefly touch on, folks have been mentioning our budget and concerns, but I would need to reiterate, we released a balanced budget. We have maintained an A1 credit rating. We're set to stabilize by 2025. And I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done. But in short, increase our tax base, continue to invest in public-private partnerships, and explore ways to diversify our tax base by speaking with groups like You Decide Kentucky. Thank you.
All right, great. Did I miss anyone? I don't think I did. Okay. Looks like Bill Wells is having some technical issues, and well, maybe not. We're going to keep working on that, so we apologize for that. But we are moving on to the next question for now. Next question, which I will share discursively as well, kind of plays off the previous question. How can Covington work to attract more diverse businesses to and throughout the city? And Shannon Smith, you will go first.
I frankly think that our economic development crew is already doing an incredible job, by offering certain incentives, and I'll have to specifically speak to that myself because I consider myself a diverse business owner as a double minority. And before I was ever elected to office, I received a incentive grant, matching rent grant from the city. And I've spent every day since then trying to reinvest and essentially repay that. So I think to continue to invest in our small business incentives, continue to proactively advertise, be an environment that's highly responsive. And, I'm a business law attorney and I work with a lot of businesses in a lot of cities. And I can tell you that our city is highly responsive, highly flexible, highly supportive, and we need to continue that trend to be successful. I frankly think that we're already doing a fantastic job, but we can always do better. Thank you.
All righty. Same question, Aaron Wolpert.
I think I'll come back to something I said in the previous question, that we need to work with our residents to figure out what businesses would serve their needs most. This is always hard. Surveys and asking questions doesn't always give you the sort of easy answer or a determined path in how to go. But we, with good reason, talk about downtown. We talk about CCR a lot. And that is the one urban core. But really, Covington has at least two urban cores with Latonia. And of course, Latonia business community has taken off, just certainly in the time that we've lived here. But there's a whole lot more to do and a whole lot more opportunity. We need to make sure that we're not wish casting there. And again, I think it's working with residents and doing studies of nearby communities to see what sort of businesses would best suit folks' needs and thrive, of course. It's easy to talk about what businesses we want, but they have to work and they have to be successful in order to repay the investment. I know Latonia folks in particular are excited about the development opportunities, given the shopping center and a whole lot of possible redevelopment options. And we're already working successfully in that direction. Tom West and his team have done a fantastic job in bringing more manufacturing jobs to Latonia recently. But we need to continue to be creative there. And it's not a simple process. It's not a kind of a one-size-fits-all study. It will take, I think, long and engaged conversations with our residents to figure out what will work best.
Excellent. Thank you. Tim Ackery, you are next.
Thanks, Nathan. I think to echo what Shannon said, that the city already does an amazing job. There is already huge interest in coming to the city of Covington with the $5 billion mile running up and down the river here. Northern Kentucky in general. I just went and heard Governor Beshear speak the other night, and he made the comment the city of Cincinnati is finally jealous of Covington and Northern Kentucky because of what we're doing over here. So hats off to Commissioner Downing and Commissioner Smith and the other acting commissioners and the city themselves for what they've done to bring business here. I think focus on ensuring that the businesses as they come are serving Covington as Covington continues to grow, whether it's a grocery store or a drugstore. Even if the city of Covington builds a skate park that would bring skate shops to the town. So as we continue to focus on our parks, our rec, our public safety, bike trails, that will open up many other stores that will want to come to the city of Covington. Small businesses are our backbone. It's what we are. We don't really have big boxes, big box stores in Covington. And I don't think that will ever happen. So our tax incentives as our residents continue to move to this city, as we give them housing so they can live in this city, more stores, more restaurants, and more boutique type stores will continue to come. And the city will welcome them with open arms for sure, as they have in the past. So thank you.
Great. Carrie, you are next.
Today, I went to the ribbon cutting for Paradise, which is an event center that's also minority owned. If we want to attract diverse businesses to the city, we have to have diverse representation on commission. And frankly, I will be the only candidate that would add diversity to the existing commission. So I'm just putting that out there. But to get to businesses in general and help the businesses, we have to work with the elected officials. I also went to see Governor Beshear speak, but we need to work with Governor Beshear. We need to work with Chris McDaniel or Chris Knuckleman and Stephanie Dietz to continue to bring businesses to Covington. And the businesses will want to come to Covington and stay in Covington, and the high earners from the businesses will want to live in Covington if we have the livability and the walkability and the green spaces. So it's kind of all tied together. But if we want to get more minority and diverse businesses, we have to have more diverse representation on commission, on the city staff, on our businesses. So it's, you have to hit critical mass. There's a concept of critical mass. Once you hit the critical mass, then more people will come.
All right, thank you, Carrie. We're gonna try and see if we resolve some of the technical issues here with Bill Wells. Bill, if you can hear us, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
I feel like a Verizon commercial. Okay. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bill Wells, and for the first 24 years of my life, I lived one street south of Covington in a little town called Winston Park. I was one of 6 children, and we were always taught to think of others before themselves. I began working at the age of 5 at my parents' grocery store, Grand and Taylor Mill Roads. When I was 17 years old, I became a volunteer fireman, and at the age of 18, a volunteer responders. I'm the founding member of the South Covington Community Action Association and served 12 years in a leadership position at the Covington Neighborhood Collaborative. Because I still consider myself a kid from Latonia, I'm a member of Latonia Uptown as their treasurer. I've led our elected officials and city staff on neighborhood tours through every neighborhood in the city of Covington. In fact, for the past 25 years, I've worked with every elected official in Northern Kentucky every city department, and every neighborhood association in Covington to make our city a better place to live. In 2014, I was first elected as commissioner and reelected in 2016. In my first term, since I've had decades of fleet management experience, I was tasked to create the fleet replacement plan. Another thing that I was very proud to be a part of is paying off the TAN, where the city would borrow millions of dollars every year to make payroll. We also adopted a program called OpenGov, where anyone could quickly and easily see where their tax dollars were being spent. I would love to bring back that program back. Thank you.
Bill, since you're here, why don't you go ahead and answer the question? I just put it in the chat there. You should be able to see it. How can Covington work to attract more diverse businesses to and throughout the city? All right, we'll come back to that. Brady Bowen, go ahead. Your turn.
All right. Well, I do agree that we do need to have more diverse representation on city commission. And I also agree that we've done a great job so far with getting the economic development started in the city. I think that we could look at taking it into a different direction now that we are such an up and coming city and we are in that top 50 cities in the US. We have a little bit more leverage. And so one of the things that I would like for us to do is to focus on recruitment of diverse businesses through the use of diversity incentives, for one. I would also like for us to focus on providing economic development support to businesses that focus on activities that will engage our youth and our families, again, to keep them, out of trouble in the evenings, give them something to do. I know my students were devastated when the skating rink closed because that was a haven for them. They spent so much time at our rink here in Latonia. They were able to be in a safe space. They were able to build relationships with their families, with the community, and they just loved it. And so once it closed, they were pretty much at a loss because they had no place else to go in the evenings. So keeping our focus, again, our economic development focus on recruitment of our diverse businesses through those incentives, and also looking at what our students, our families need, is another direction I would like for us to take.
Great, thank you. James, you are next.
I will echo what Commissioner Smith and many others have said. Tom West and our economic development team, I think, does a phenomenal job in this city. But we still need to, continue to incentivize businesses, especially diverse businesses, to utilize some of the empty space that we have in the city. I'm really excited as a Latonia resident to hear Thermo Fisher coming in, bringing in numerous jobs that are pretty well paying. My hopes with that is the lot in front of the former, which I still call Value City, it's Keller Logistics now, I believe, is up for development. I'd like to see some, more, hopefully some progress on that over the next few years, as well as South Covington. As well as bringing in diverse businesses, we need to be diverse within the areas that we put them in too. And, with Latonia on the rise, and then, there's some plans for South Covington. We need to keep those areas in mind as well. Thank you.
All righty, thank you. And then Tim Downing, you are next.
Thank you. I think that the city is doing a lot of what it needs to do in order to be able to attract the businesses that it needs. First thing that you need to do is you need to understand what businesses want. They need to be able to have access to high-speed internet or be able to connect to them. They need to be able to have the right kind of office space. So, for example, when I first got elected, we didn't have enough Class A office space to deal with some of the different businesses that were wanting to connect with our community. The reality is that we need to continue to diversify the businesses that are attracted to our community. It's part of the reason why we offer facade grants and rent incentives for businesses that are smaller, so that way we can have more of the local investment. And then we can also work on things like what we are doing with the IRS and some of the other areas that we have where we're trying to develop. We are focused not just on the big project, but we're focused on the small too. As Commissioner Smith mentioned, we have a great relationship with many of the members of the business community. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we continue to remove barriers from the business community when they want to interact with the city and when they want to engage with the city. We want to make sure that we're continuing to attract high skill, high paying jobs in order to make sure that our community can continue to grow. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. The next question has to do with housing, which is a recurring topic. In the NKY region, rising costs of living and housing are a problem across the region. What can Covington do to ensure that the people who live here can afford to stay here? Carrie, you are first.
We do need to take actionable steps for affordable housing. We need to prioritize partnerships with local nonprofits and developments to create mixed income housing developments. I've been walking the city and there are a lot of vacant properties that I would like for us to facilitate code enforcement. So code enforcement does a good job, but it needs to go further. It needs to then go to, violations and then eventually foreclosure so that somebody can develop that property and then we have more housing. Sorry, there was a noise here that distracted me. When we talk about housing, I want to make sure that we consider the dignity of the dweller and the protection of the city's infrastructure. So we need to have some guardrails for density in different rental places and the effect that has in our infrastructure for the city.
Okay. Tim Downing, you are next.
Right. I am proud to say that Covington has a lot of affordable housing options, especially when we compare to some of the surrounding communities. When anybody who walks our streets, they can see that the collection of our neighborhoods, it makes it a desirable place to live. And I understand some of the challenges that we've had. I believe that one of our highest priorities as a city needs to be increasing home ownership in each of these neighborhoods. As a commissioner, we have hired a neighborhood services director as part of our plan to ensure that the city is furthering our fair housing and is attentive to the concentration issue. We've adjusted our code enforcement approach to ensure that absentee landlordism does not negatively impact Covington residents or their homes. And as a long-term solution, I've worked with the city to make sure that we are getting rid of our vacant housing stock. We're trying to make sure that those houses that are those properties that the city owns, we're getting them off the books, and we're making sure that we are making them available to other residents in order to make sure that they have a place to live here. We want to make sure that we're continuing to include mixed income housing where appropriate, so that way we can also help lead to increased homeownership within our community. Thank you.
All right, Brady, you are next.
So as a member of the Housing Authority Board and the Neighborhood Investment Partners, this is something that I am passionate about. Again, my students over the years have had various needs. They used to come to us with issues for food and housing insecurity, or excuse me, food and clothing insecurity. But this year in particular, I've had multiple families come in and ask us for housing assistance. There are a variety of things that we can do within the city to provide additional rental support in particular and rental developments to assist with especially those mid-range folks, the people who don't necessarily qualify for any type of housing assistance, but also make less money than what you would normally be able to afford market rate apartments. So those are your folks like your mental health care workers, your teachers, your early career firefighters, your early career police officers, and also your service industry workers, the people who are going to be working at those jobs in our new riverfront development. We need to be able to provide for them places to live as well. So there are a couple of different ideas. Again, these are being implemented in other cities. And so it's not just something that would be revolutionary here in Covington, but it would help us to continue our leadership in providing housing assistance and housing support in Northern Kentucky. We could look at inclusionary zoning policies where you require new developments to have a variety of housing ranges. So your mid-level range, you can still have the market value housing, but then also focus on that mid-level and some of more affordable housing. You could also look at using community land trusts to purchase land and create developments in conjunction with some of our local nonprofit organizations. The Northern Kentucky Area Development District recently put out a survey of data that they've collected about the entire Northern Kentucky region. 60% of our residents in Northern Kentucky will be making less than $60,000 in the next few years. That will be their salary range. So we need to make sure that we heed their study and look at the data that they gave us and realize that the majority of the housing that we're going to need in the next few years is at that 1,200 or below level. Thank you.
All righty, Shannon Smith, you are next.
Thank you. And I can appreciate the question, and it's what we can do, but I also want to highlight what we have done. Right now, Covington holds essentially 24% of the county population, but we have 77% of the subsidized housing population, which is an incredible feat that I'm very proud of. And just recently, I highlighted one of our residents, Tish Maxwell, who was homeless in Ohio for nearly a decade and found help here and praised us for the work that we've done. Not only that, in the recent years, we've actually adjusted our neighborhood development code to make it easier for folks to bring affordable housing to our city. And despite us doing a good job, we can continue to do better, and we can continue to partner with NIP to bring to essentially grant parcels to low-income developers, have them continue to develop it and resell it at a lower cost. We also need to recognize that this issue is not a Covington issue. It is a regional, essentially not just regional, but a nationwide issue. So we need to engage partners beyond our city to address it, because this is not an issue that our city alone can bear. And we need to partner with others to address it. And we can also continue to pursue grant opportunities. Just today, actually, Nathan, you guys released in Link that we got a $450,000 grant to rehabilitate existing affordable housing. So it's not just about bringing affordable housing, it's about making sure that the affordable housing that we bring is quality. And those are the sort of steps that we need to take to not only bring affordable housing, but to make sure it's quality for those in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. James, you are next.
As Commissioner Smith also just mentioned, this is a nationwide issue and it's getting a lot of attention at the state and national level. So I'm very hopeful that there will be some additional funding options for the city to lean upon in the near future. But, to address the immediate need, Covington's kind of in a unique disadvantage where we don't just have abundance of undeveloped land that, we can incentivize people to build more affordable housing on. But, as we continue and develop the Central Riverfront development, even with the market rate housing, there's studies out there that show that it's a supply and demand issue. So as the market rate housings and other housings built within the city, it will help stabilize some home prices. And I agree, compared to other areas, Covington is still extremely affordable. But, our employee wages aren't increasing the same rate as housing. And, my house, for example, went up 80% in a couple of years ago, and I don't live a very lavish lifestyle. But I think what we could do is work with our local developers and see what, if any, incentives the city can offer to try to do something with the abundance of abandoned properties we have in the city, a lot of them being the abandoned lots. In addition to that, I know right now the city's not doing any incentives for residential housing, from my understanding, but I think that's an opportunity, especially when we're looking for workforce housing. We needed to zone for areas for multifamily residences. And, I know it's been mentioned, I think a few months ago at one of the city commission meetings, that roughly 13% of all homes, and this is counting the elimination of city heights, are government subsidized. I know we're doing a lot compared to our neighboring cities, but that's never a reason to stop to continue to looking out for our residents. Thank you.
Aaron, you are next.
You have an advantage in Covington in that we're not burdened by some of the restrictive zoning that some of the suburban communities have. Even local developers know that we don't need a whole lot more giant lot, single family housing. They know that, but they get stymied in places like Independence by single family zoning. We are free from that. And that's a great advantage and an opportunity. Builders who know what their buyers actually want to be in Covington. So we can encourage that and work with local developers who know that. I would suggest a more cooperative approach when we're talking about vacant lots and abandoned properties. Using code enforcement in a punitive way really doesn't work. There are dozens, if not more, property owners who owe tens of thousands of dollars in accumulated taxes and fines. It's not as if we can just wave a wand and go and foreclose and repossess those properties. It doesn't work that way. They're in the legal system, and to move on those, we would have to hire an entire new legal staff. So we can't talk about tightening our belts and watching our budget at the same time as using code enforcement in a punitive way. It just doesn't add up. So I would advocate or suggest that we work more cooperatively with people, not see everyone as a bad guy. I get the sense that some people are just stuck. They inherited property or they got behind on code enforcement fines, taxes, and so forth. It doesn't serve any of us to have these stuck in court or in an adversarial relationship. If we can get people to move on by a mix of using the code enforcement system and incentives, covering closing costs, connecting people with legal help that will push folks toward the sort of local developers with whom we want to work, whom we know will build the housing that we need. That to me seems like a more productive, more amicable, and much more efficient way to address some of the problems that others have identified here.
Thank you, Aaron. Tim Ackery, you are next.
Yeah, Nathan, I'd like to work with the local developers to create tax credits for low-income housing only if they designate certain units in their developments for our lower to mid-income workers, folks that, as Brady mentioned earlier, that can't, that don't qualify for assisted living, but yet are making that less than $60,000 range. I also think the development of a land bank working through Northern Kentucky Port Authority will allow us to find more state and federal opportunities. That's pretty much what the Port Authority does is find money and redevelop properties, whether it's for business or home. I agree with Shannon that we have a great, Commissioner Smith, that we have a great code already in place. I think that could be looked at a little closer to find more incentives to offer, as well as make things easier for developers within the city. And of course, redevelopment of vacant lots. There are vacant lots available. There are also homes that probably could be demolished and redeveloped as well, that we could turn into multifamily homes. And lastly, I would work with the locally neighboring cities and see how they can help us. Commissioner Smith mentioned the numbers: 27% of us, 27% of Kenton County is here in Covington, and 77% of that, we house 77% of the lower income housing, and our neighbors need to help us. They need to step up here in Kenton County, and we need to work with them in an effort to make that happen. Thank you.
All righty. Next question. And this one is straightforward, but maybe not so straightforward. Do you support the proposed change in the Covington city government structure? Why or why not? James, you are first.
In the council platform. The biggest reason for me is it gives voters a larger voice in how the city's managed. Today, if the city manager is not doing his job the way the residents like, they really don't have a voice unless 3 commissioners decide to vote him out. This will give the opportunity for residents to choose. If they don't think the mayor is doing a good job, they can replace the mayor. I did visit the West Side Neighborhood Association meeting a few weeks back where we got to listen to both sides of the argument, and I truly understand the concerns of the people that are against it. I think they're very valid, but hearing some of the issues that Mayor Meyer presented, especially at the Latonia Business Association with the challenges when he was first elected, that's very concerning that a employee of the city can hold up some progress that way. So I'll use a great example. A few years back, we had money embezzled from the city, and there was a large outcry from the public to relieve the city manager at that time. And it took quite a while before he was let go. And I'm a firm believer, being a military guy, and Tim Ackery probably agree with this, when the seaman driving this carrier runs aground, the commander's relieved. And, the captain has to go down with that ship. And, if this passes, I think it's a great opportunity to work with the people that, were pushing against it, to try to say, what policies can we put in place to, try to alleviate some of the concerns they have. I think there's opportunities to work with other neighboring cities to, any challenges they're having, that we can get that taken care of. And, like has happened in Falmouth as well as Walton, if we have a mayor that is doing something unethical or illegal, the council can remove them from that position.
Thank you. Aaron Wolpert, you are next.
I think it's important to realize that Kentucky statute dictates much of what the mayor-council form of government will, how it'll work. We don't have complete freedom. We don't have much freedom in nibbling around the edges of figuring out what protocols we could put in place to check some of the concerns folks have. We are limited by what the statute says, and that's important to keep in mind. We don't have the flexibility of, as is the case in other states. I'll reiterate what I said last week, that I think we needed to think of this in terms of responsibilities. When city government failed, when there was mismanagement by the city manager and others, someone was asleep at the switch. Commissioners and mayors are also responsible. We're talking about who's driving the ship. Ultimately, the mayors and commissioners are responsible too. And I'm not sure they did take a responsibility in decades past when this happened. So, it seems to me if we have 4 dedicated full-time commissioners and a mayor, likewise, as we certainly will have with Ron Washington, there should be sufficient oversight from those folks. If though and I'm sure all of us would commit to doing the oversight we need to make sure the city government's functioning properly. There are added responsibilities if we switch to mayor-council. In that councilors will have to craft legislation with benchmarking and monitoring to make sure that their legislative intent is indeed carried out by the mayor, that there's no miscommunication or misunderstanding. And there's certainly a challenge there, not necessarily a fatal challenge in any sense, but something we certainly need to be aware of. So in short, I'll say that I don't see the urgency, and that many of the issues that have been identified by Mayor Meyer and others have been corrected over the past 8 years under Mayor Meyer's leadership. It seems like he worked within the city manager form and did address these problems, even if it was a difficult process. Thanks.
Tim Ackery, you are next.
Thanks, Nathan. I 100% support the mayor council for several reasons. James mentioned the military. In the military, there's one boss. There's an administrative control and an operational control, OpCon and AdCon. And one guy runs all of that and has several officers, if not many officers underneath him, to carry out his thoughts. Collectively, those thoughts are put together. He makes the final decision and they move forward. I believe the city, although is not broken, I do believe that the city staff struggles a bit, solely because at this point they have 5 bosses and they have to make those decisions based on what they feel is best, not what council and or the current mayor would like to see done. I also think it's advantageous for the city to move in this direction. It would possibly put more commissioners and or councilmen on council, which allows a bigger representation throughout the city, which also allows more things to be able to come to the surface and possibly get addressed. Lastly, I think that the focus on how the city is operating at this point, and I'm not talking about the elected officials, I'm talking about the hired officials. It would take a long time for, in the current position, the current status and the current structure, to get rid of a person that doesn't belong within the city organization. That's all.
Thank you. Carrie, you are next.
I support the mayor council form. I will vote yes. I think the mayor needs to have some executive power. And we are in a unique position because we know that the mayor is going to be Ron Washington. And we know that Ron Washington has a deep history of service and dedication to the city. So we have this amazing opportunity to start the process, you know, running out of the gate. We know that it will work well. I think also, having been walking the city and talking to people in under neighborhoods, we do need more representation. And with the council, they would be like additional council members. We have been talking in previous questions about the need for the commissioners in this case to connect with the public, right, and to be more involved. So if once we have council members, then we will have more, and it'll be easier to connect with citizens of Covington. I also think it will be a lot more efficient when you have to make all these decisions. That you know, Mayor Joe Meyer said that up to 91% of the decisions that the commissioners make are kind of redundant because, you know, they just have to be there. That should give everyone a reason to pause and reflect and say, is this really how we want to spend our time, right? 91% of the decisions. So with a strong mayor and the council, the city can be more nimble and faster react to all these needs from businesses or, you know, needs to move on the housing and move the housing stock. So I frankly see no benefits of staying with the commissioner form of government. Thank you.
Tim Downing, you are next.
Fantastic. I'll repeat the same message that I did the other night. That is, when I first got elected, this same topic was brought up to me, and I was vehemently opposed. I thought, who in their right mind would run for an elected office and work this hard to then cede power to someone else? It didn't really make much sense to me on the surface, but I've been fortunate enough to be an elected official now for the past 8 years. And I can tell you that transitioning to the strong mayor form of government it's a good idea. And the reason why is because when we are looking as commissioners at the job responsibilities that we have day to day, right now, all 5 of us, we each carry equal shares of the burden. But in a strong mayor form of government, as some of the other candidates have stated, it centralizes that executive authority. And then the commissioners would become council members. We craft legislation. That is why we are all running. We're not running to review resumes. We are not running to make sure that we're signing the contracts. That is something that we can give over to the mayor. Let the mayor focus on those day-to-day responsibilities and allow us to do the things that are going to help us better the city. Crafting the legislation and helping adjust the budget to make sure that we are helping the city continue to grow.
Thank you, Tim. Brady, you are next.
Okay, as I've said before, I feel that it is the decision of the voters ultimately whether we go to a mayor form of council or strong mayor form of government or stick with the commission. I think we need to make sure that we're doing a good job of informing our community so that they can make a decision based on facts and data. There are pros and cons to both forms, but one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that if you have the right leadership team in place, those who have that common vision and mission focused on moving the city forward, no matter what form of government you have, things are going to work and be productive. We also need to look at our policies and systems within the city government to make sure that we have clear policies in order to address any of our underperforming employees or leadership, so that we aren't ever stuck in a position where it takes us an extensive amount of time to get rid of somebody who is not doing their job.
Okay. Shannon Smith.
Thank you. And I do support the initiative. And I think I'm probably going to echo everyone that's spoken before me in that it is going to allow for more efficiency and accountability. I believe I'm one of the only current business owners here. And, when you're running a business, having someone that can make decisions immediately day to day is going to help reduce any sort of bottlenecking and make it clear who the boss is. So it's really going to drive efficiency and move the city forward. And the other piece is accountability. And as everyone spoke before, right now with the city manager form, and our city manager, I think, has done a great job. But at the end of the day, the city manager isn't accountable to the taxpayers. So when we make this shift, there's going to be an increased level of accountability. So I think I'm probably echoing most before me, but I do support the initiative. I know right now about 53% of cities have this form of government, and although that is not a reason alone to support it, from those that I've spoken with within those cities, it's by and large been effective. So long story short, I do support the current initiative. Thank you.
All right. So we are at our final question for the evening. This one's a little more open-ended. At this point, you can make any concluding remarks and you can discuss any other priorities or issues that have not been discussed in the previous questions. Tim Ackery, you will go first.
Thanks, Nathan. So you guys have heard some of my passions and my ideas for the great city and what I'd like to accomplish if I'm lucky enough to get elected. The city of Covington has seen great changes over the past decade. It is absolutely on an upward trajectory. I'm confident that I have the skills and the expertise that the city needs to ensure this continued unprecedented growth. The current commission has done an excellent job, as we've heard this evening, getting us to this point, and I'm confident they would continue to move the needle. But I feel as though the expertise that I bring with my construction knowledge, environmental background, and other community groups that I've been involved with allow me to help continue to move that forward. I'm passionate about the city of Covington and even more passionate about the possibilities. I want to make sure that we do all that we can to ensure the city and all of its residents that call Covington home get everything that they deserve. I did want to bring up one thing about the budget, and I know there's been a lot of talk about this, but with Fidelity returning to work, that's obviously helping the tax. There is quite a large reserve that's built in the city. Again, hats off. I don't want to keep sounding like I'm jumping on their bandwagon, but hats off to the current commission and the mayor for what they've done. But I just want everybody that's watching and listening to know that the city is in a very good place and will continue to move in that direction. And I want to be part of that. So thank you guys for coming out, and I respectfully request your support and vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Carrie, you are up.
I'm running on a platform of balancing economic development with sustainability. And I've talked about walkability and green spaces and bike safety, but we also have not talked about inclusivity. We know that Covington is a diverse community and that caters to all of its citizens and in which all of its citizens can thrive. But we need to work with inclusivity in all aspects. We do have great parks, but can everyone use the parks? Like, for example, if can a person on a wheelchair access the park? You know, are there steps or can they get through it? So we need to consider inclusivity that way. The city does a good job. For example, the commission meetings are televised so everybody can attend. But what other kinds of things can we do to make sure that all the citizens of Covington feel welcomed? Those are my two passions, and that's what I intend to work for. I hope to see you at the polling places, at the voting places on November 5th, and I hope that you vote Carrie McMurtry Garriga for Covington Commissioner. Thank you.
All right, Brady, you are up.
Again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak with everyone and share my ideas. One of the things that we focused on tonight was housing, which is truly a passion of mine, but something that we did not get a chance to talk about is our increased need to focus on our community crime and violence prevention strategies. Our local government needs to take the leadership in this area. For so long, the schools have been expected to do so much of this, or the police have been expected to do this. But we need to come together as a community with all of the organizations within our city to work together to address the needs of our community and to reduce the violence. We need to look at our organizations that are already serving our families and our youth and trying to do those violence prevention strategies, such as the Ion Center, the Brighton Center. But we also need to bring in our mental health providers, North Key, Mainspring. We need to bring in Health Point and come together as a community to embrace our youth and make sure that we are giving them the best chance at success in their lives. We can take the example of other cities who are already doing this. For example, Baltimore has programs in place where the mayor's youth summit group has taken over, and they're creating safe passage organizations where businesses are identified, the business owners are trained, and youth are taught to go to these facilities, and if they're having any type of issue or if they're in danger within a community. They're also taking more trauma-informed approaches to all of the interactions that they have with the community. So in the end here, I'm asking for your vote on November 5th. Again, my priorities are going to be families, community, safety, housing, meeting the needs of all of our residents. And that is why I am qualified to be your next Covington Commissioner.
Thank you, Brady. Tim Downing, you are next.
Thank you. My name is Tim Downing, and I have always tried to have a customer service approach to governance. I think that that's why I enjoy campaigning the way that I do. I'm always worried that I'm going to interrupt somebody's dinner. So going door to door isn't always the most fun, but it's a unique opportunity to make sure that all voices are heard. And even as I talk about this, the conversations that I've had, they come back to me. Discussions on how to mitigate speeding down side streets, our plans to increase job growth, the plans for the IRS, helping encourage local businesses to reinvest within our city and revitalizing old storefronts. These are the conversations that help grow our city. Talking with families in Latonia, in South Covington, in Mainstrasse, in Keysburg, all over our great city. These are the dinner table issues that our communities use to help drive us to make improvements within our city. We have many opportunities that are on the horizon, and there's no doubt about it. I've said this many times as I've spoken with residents throughout the city. The next several years are going to help shape the face of our city for years to come. We are going to be making decisions to finalize the plans around the IRS, potential developments around Hands Pike, navigating through countless construction projects, continuing to shape the economic development in Latonia, building a new city hall, and countless other projects too numerous to mention. I've said this many times before, but the city of Covington, we have momentum. But momentum is fragile and it can be easily knocked off course. And I am hoping that I can get your support to continue that momentum. I am Tim Downing. I am a candidate for Covington City Commission. The leadership and effort I have brought to our city has helped shape and enhance this momentum. And I am asking you for your support to help continue the growth of Covington. Please remember, this November, vote Tim Downing.
All right, James, you are next.
All the candidates for attending, and Nathan, thank you for hosting this event. You did a great job. I just kind of want to do something a little different. I encourage anybody watching this, please, feel free, reach out to all the candidates, talk to the candidates, try to make informed decisions based on what you're going to vote on. I know many of us have phone numbers on our social media. You could send messages, emails, and I assume, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I assume everybody would be glad to hear from you. Back when I was in the military, I did my first deployment in 2004, and going into, it was tail end of 2004, but Iraq was getting ready to have their first election in 2005, their very first free election. And it was such a monumental occasion for those people. I mean, voter turnout was phenomenal over there. And we have a lot of important issues on our ballot this year. And it's not just the federal elections. There's a lot of important local and state issues on there. So I encourage everybody, please do some research. Please, make your own decision, your own informed decisions. And, just don't listen to mailers and what everybody else tells you to vote for. But I look forward to and continue to engage with residents. And, as we go through these next few weeks, I really hope that I can earn one of your 4 votes. Thank you.
Shannon Smith.
Thank you. I do want to go ahead because I didn't do this earlier. And thank you, Nathan, Link, Shannon Ratterman, CGN, Pat from CBC. And I'll be very brief. The city has been successful. It's seen unprecedented success, and I'm running to make sure that it continued. And to echo Commissioner Downing, momentum is something that is fragile. And you can trust that if you vote for me, that momentum is going to continue. I have the experience, the established relationships, and the entrepreneurial mindset to continue it. I've been a commissioner for nearly 6 years. I know how the commission operates, what we need to do. There's no learning curve for me. With experience comes institutional knowledge, which unfortunately we are going to lose some of that when Mayor Meyer leaves. But I understand the history behind the ordinances, the obstacles, opportunities, where to go, who to work with, and what to do when determining how to decipher, address, or capitalize on each issue within those ordinances. That's speaking to my experience. And when we're talking about relationships, I've developed relationships and meaningful ones with local, regional, state, and national folks. I sit on the regional tourism board. I've been fortunate to work with folks on both sides of the aisle. And for us to continue to succeed, we need to maintain those relationships. And that's what I plan to do. And one of the things that I will share, and it was actually one of my proudest moments when I was getting ready to put my hat in the ring to run again, there were countless city employees who came to me and asked me to run. And it was very humbling, and I'm proud that I helped create an environment where they felt comfortable, that they could succeed, that they could do their best work, and we could all do our best work to serve the taxpayers and do an excellent job. And that for me was a very special moment. And lastly, as an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, we need to run this city as a business. And in order to succeed, we need to also keep an eye on customer service, because at the end of the day, that's our job. And it's our job for every single citizen. So knowing how to manage budgets, plan, be innovative, manage teams, all of that it's just crucial to be a commissioner. And I'm also a business law attorney, and as an attorney, I bring with me the skill set to advocate and negotiate effectively on behalf of the city, and read every contract and do everything from that lens, not at the rate of an attorney. So with that, I just wanted to thank you all, and I continue to believe and know that I'm your committed candidate, and I'll ask for your vote in November. Thank you so much.
All right, last but not least, Aaron Wolbert.
Rather than rehearse my ideas again or talk about expertise and so forth, I'm going to defer to the people. You can look at my ideas on my website, wolpertforthecov.org, and if you want to gauge, whether I'm suited for the job, come talk to me. I've already talked to a couple thousand Covingtonians over the last couple months in every neighborhood in the city, and I've heard so many great ideas I couldn't possibly list them here. But that's where we need to start. Sure, we all have our own ideas, we all have our own expertise, but we need to harness the enthusiasm and the knowledge, the local knowledge of folks who have lived here, for 5, 10, 15, 70 years. That's our resource, and we need to do a better job with that. It's been somewhat surprising to me, the number of people in special neighborhoods like West Covington, East Side, Austinburg, Montecasino, who have never spoken to a commissioner or a candidate for commissioner. And these are folks who've lived here for 50 or 60 years. We're missing out. These folks, we're not listening to their ideas. We're not even soliciting their feedback. It's all well and good to say, come down to a meeting or call city staff or whatever, but we need to be more active. And as I said, the number of ideas that I've heard from folks far outstrip anything that any of us could come up with on our own. So there's a huge untapped potential there. And there is the sense, which is also somewhat disappointing, that in some of these neighborhoods that they just do not have a voice, that they're not listened to, that there are a handful of neighborhoods who have the resources and the time to make their voice heard more effectively at City Hall, and there's no problem, nothing wrong with that. But if we are missing people and we are not actively talking to folks in West Covington and Montecasino and all the sort of peripheral edges of this city, we are missing out, and we're not serving the city as well as we can. I think we've got incredible potential in that regard. Thanks.
All right. Well, we hope that you all had an excellent evening today. Thank you again to the Covington Business Council and the Center for Great Neighborhoods for co-sponsoring our event with us. I do apologize again for some of the technical difficulties that we experienced today. But if you go to linknky.com, you can read profiles on all of the candidates and their platform positions. We also have write-ups on a lot of their priorities as candidates, as well as write-ups on the proposed government commission as well. Next week, we will be having our community conversation about Amendment 2. That is free and open to the public and is proving to be one of the most well, a lot of people care about it. Let's just put it that way. Thank you all. Have a good evening and go vote in November.